Today we're going to review another video from Oscar Patel, our favorite YouTuber. He is claiming that parents accidentally ruin their children's looks. I haven't watched this yet, but let's see if anything he says is based on reality or just misleading marketing tactics.
The 4 ways parents destroy their children's health and beauty. Pacifiers. Pacifiers act as a barrier between the tongue and the palate, preventing the tongue from soothing the palate and also restricting it from shifting the maxilla upwards and forwards, which is
Now, that could be true. I'm pretty sure some people were using pacifiers and probably needed some orthodontic procedure after that. But I myself was using a pacifier as I was young, and I never had braces or anything like that. And my facial development was, decent. My teeth are straight. So I don't know about that. I think nutrition and environmental factors such as toxicity and medication will influence your facial cranial development more than a pacifier could ever influence it.
the bone that forms the foundation of the entire face. If the maxilla doesn't rotate upwards and forwards, the nasal floor collapses, the likelihood of a deviated septum increases, and nasal breathing can become obstructed. And when
Does it? I don't have a deviated septum. What are the statistics? Can you show us 37% of children who had pacifiers needed braces? Can you do claims like that? I don't think you can. In fact, let's go investigate a little bit. All right, so it says prolonged pacifier use beyond 2 to 4 years old. I think most people by 4 will stop using it. Often causes dental issues such as overbite, open bite, and crowded teeth. The crowded teeth, I'm not sure I agree about because this will be your jaw development, which will mostly be based on food quality, food provenance, and nutrition. How much your body had to literally build a bone out of. Not entirely convinced yet, Oscar. Let's keep going. Let's see if any of these claims are going to hold up.
When nasal breathing becomes obstructed, nitric oxide decreases, the nervous system shifts into a sympathetic, stressed state, the fascia becomes tighter, and every process of development suffers as a result. It's not my place to tell parents what to do, but if possible, I would definitely try to avoid utilizing pacifiers before they become dependent on them and teaching them to use their tongue to create the suction to soothe instead. Secondly, chewing soft foods. When I interned at my
What? I think the soft food thing is absolute BS. I don't think that has anything to do with science. Most human in nature were eating raw meat, which is the softest of all. You don't need to chew that shit. In fact, if you look at the Eskimos, the way they eat it, they take a chunk of meat, they cut it off their knife, and they almost swallow it whole. They hardly do any chewing.
Myofunctional institutes, and when I transform my own self from this to this completely naturally, I realized that chewing is the foundation of the entire face and the way that all of the muscles get developed. And when the muscles get developed, this activates processes like mechanotransductions. The muscles generate osteoblasts, which develop new bone matrix, and the face and skull properly develop. When the baby is able to, chewing harder food will serve as a catalyst for developing the muscles.
Complete BS.
And creating this entire positive cycle from the very start, to the point where later in life, the need for things like braces is minimized because the jaw becomes more developed when you chew harder food.
I agree with that. If the jaw is more developed, teeth has more space, then you won't need orthodontic procedure. What I don't agree with is the mechanism of which it happens. When Weston A. Price went in nature and analyzed all the natural humans which had perfect jaw development and perfect teeth, their diet varied quite broadly, some of which ate 90% blood and milk like one of the Maasai tribe or something, which they didn't even chew and they still had perfect jaw development. So how the fuck do you explain that? It's so stupid. If you have the proper environment like sunlight and the proper food that's been grown locally, you won't need any proper posture or myofascial fucking bullshit. Oh my God.
It also encourages a proper suction when swallowing from the tongue, which forms the width and foundation of the palate. And when the palate is wider, the teeth have enough space to grow in properly. Remember, our ancestors had 50mm palates and perfectly straight teeth with no need for orthodontics. But in the modern world, we have narrow palates and crooked teeth, not because of genetics or luck, but because we're forming worse habits and the new generations are consuming.
So he is showing pictures from the Weston A. Price book. So look at this. These are like the native ones. They have perfectly well-developed jaw, straight teeth. And then those who started living more modern lifestyle had rotten and crooked teeth. Do you think that was because of food softness? What? No, absolute nonsense. It was because they started living indoor, they started eating too much fucking grains and processed food that was brought in by the Europeans. That's it. Bad nutrition, low exposure to sunlight, and just overall bad health lifestyle.
Soft, pureed foods rather than learning to engage the muscles and form the structure of the face as nature intended. Thirdly, being forced to walk too early before they even learn to properly crawl. Crawling is the foundation of biomechanics. You can see it in every animal in nature, this spiral movement that is created which forms the fascial connections.
Actually, I'll give him that. For once, bravo, Oscar. This is like called infant development. Paul Chek had an entire course on that, very good stuff. I think you should let the baby do its natural processes and not force them to walk too early. I think this is really good advice. In fact, it is the same with reading. Forcing your children to read too early, which will shift them from right brain dominant to left brain dominant. The right brain side is the creativity side. This is what children need to develop as they're young. And if you teach them to read too early, it will shift them into a logical and rational thinking. And later on in life, they won't be able to think for themselves. But there is a deeper reason why they do this. I'll let you figure it out. If you figure it out, please comment down below. I'm curious to know how awakened you are. Let's see if Oscar is gonna have any other good advice.
And then when we are ready, allows us to walk in the correct pattern with the toes going in, the heels flicking out, activating things like the anterior tibial tendon and activating this electricity that runs throughout the body, which allows us to move in the correct patterns, opens up our posture, and when the posture is correct, the neck supports the head, and again, everything develops upwards and forwards. Breathing improves, becoming more athletic, more attractive, and minimum.
Again, very misleading. He is jumping from one point to the other so quickly without really giving you an explanation of how they all tie together. Yes, posture is really important. Yes, infant development is really important. But let's say somebody had proper infant development, doesn't mean they won't be able to fuck up their posture later on by overusing technology and just poor lifestyle and shit diet. And so he's making it seem like one will dramatically affect the other one for the rest of your life, which is just not true. And attractive people, you get attractive people with poor posture too. It's just a fact. It's not like once you're attractive and you've well developed that you have the saving grace. You can age poorly as well. You should look the video I did on Jason Momoa. He's pretty much an alcoholic and he's aging terribly despite his very top tier genetics and development. So again, Oscar, so misleading. So if you're interested to know how it really works, you might want to subscribe because we will cover a lot more in the future without all that BS.
Minimizing risk for movement-related injuries later in life. And you could also argue the same thing about overly wearing shoes which restrict the toe space. Trying to get shoes with a wider toe box are key for forming these foundational movements. Good. The reality is that babies and children are so...
That's true. Sorry to pause this often, but for the shoes, it is very true. So your toes, most people that have a bunion, they call it hallux valgus, if I remember, when your big toe is curved in. The main cause is too tight shoes. If that's the case for you, if you have really broad feet, you should change your shoes, go at the core, and then over time, you will be able to correct your bunion. But before that, it's terrible. Also, shoes blocked the electrical connectivity that we have with the earth. Grounding, which is extremely important for the electron transfer, which will act as an antioxidant. Very important.
So much smarter than people realize. They move in these correct patterns, they develop at the rate they need to, as long as they're given the correct environment and input. And it honestly isn't the fault of parents at all. It is the fault of a toxic modern lifestyle which is being forced and marketed onto us without proper information and understanding of biomechanics and structural health. And the fourth final point is not understanding the impact of things like C-sections. When there isn't a proper compression-decompression cycle, of course this is going to affect the way that the sutures in the skull develop and also the fascia. And I myself was born through a C-section, so I'm not against them at all. However, there does need to be proper information regarding the importance of craniosacral techniques and fascia release for babies and children born through C-sections to avoid any structural health issues which may prevent them.
That's an interesting point. In fact, I mean, I know C-sections are not natural. I think a lot of women get C-section because of how painful pregnancy have become, which from what I've heard from the reports in nature, giving birth is, I mean, a lot less painful. I think that's due to maybe some women having poor pelvic development. Maybe there's not enough room for the baby. So there's probably a myriad of factors. Good point, Oscar. I always give credit where credit is due, but I will call the BS where it needs. Let's see where this goes.
From getting results, even if they do chew harder food, even if they do keep their tongue on the roof of their mouth, and even if they do move in the correct way. C-section births can limit these fascial connections. Nonetheless, they can 100% be tackled and improved naturally. I've even worked with many fully grown adults to release fascial restrictions formed through them being born through a C-section 40, 50, 60 years ago. So as long as the basics are utilized, this is exceptionally easy to avoid. And by the way, this is not me putting down parents. It's the most beautiful thing in all of life, forming a family, giving birth to children. Just don't be tricked by modern consumerism, pushing unhealthy habits without taking into account proper structural health and how this affects development.
Good message, wrong interpretation.
Hopefully this helps, and I know I'm speaking about children, but a reminder that you can always improve your health and looks at any age, at any time, as long as you have a proper routine and tackle your own issues and deficiencies. And we have thousands of client transformations to back this up, as you can see on the screen. Take action, whether you're a parent with a baby, whether you're a teenager, or whether you're 80 plus years old, there are no excuses. And if you want more information, if you want to tackle this properly, and you want access to like-minded people and an amazing community, you're more than welcome to scan the QR code on the screen or check out the link in the description to my community, the world's largest.
Okay, once again, guys, let me make this clear. I do not have any personal beef against Oscar Patel. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, and he's definitely a good marketer, good businessman. And I do agree with most of his advice on health, and he seems to take a natural approach for most things, which is great. But I still think that his claims, or wherever he puts the importance on what's going to affect your look and health over time, is extremely misleading and not very scientifically backed. And I think he's doing some wild claims and associations of things that do not really matter and make them claim like they do matter just because it's based on what he can sell to you. That being said, I do think that most parents are ruining their children's health through modern bad habits such as baby formula and all those baby crap food that have nothing to do with nature, and those plastic toys and those devices, and not letting the kid being outside playing in the mud like they're supposed to. And not only that, but most importantly, something that children do get, you know, when they're born. That, in my opinion, will probably wreck their health more than anything else that we've mentioned before. All right, yet again, JM here reminding you to not believe a single thing I say. Just go out there and try it for yourself and you'll find out the truth. Thank you for watching.